Good morning. I'm Ellen Fisher, Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean at New York School of Interior Design. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Teaching Green, the Symposium on Sustainability in Design Education. We're thrilled to have students, teachers, and practitioners all in the same room today, wherever you are. As we gather here, we acknowledge that New York School of Interior Design exists upon lands that we recognize as sacred, historical, and significant to the Muncie Lenape people. And we honor them through our dialogue, commitment to the environment, and our actions now and in the coming years. This is the first time that this acknowledgement has been offered at NYSID, but it is clear that the occasion, the participants, and this topic make this the right time to begin. I would like to begin by giving credit for the idea and the implementation of this symposium to Barbara Weinreich. Currently serving as Director of Graduate Programs, Barbara is a committed designer, educator, and environmentalist. With her efforts and those of her colleague and co-chair, David Bergman, Barbara has created an incredible program and an agenda of exciting speakers and provocative dialogue for today. Thank you, Barbara, for all of your hard work. This symposium would not be possible without the support and vision of our funders and industry partners. Teaching Green was underwritten by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. The speed presentation portion of the day was created in collaboration with the Interior Design Educators Council, IDEC, the voice of interior design education. IDEC's involvement allowed these presentations to be double-blind, peer-reviewed scholarship, the highest level of teaching and learning. And of course, a great big thank you to our other sponsors, Benjamin Moore, Perkins Will, Sandow Design Group, Material Bank, Plyboo, Robin Reggie Architectural Materials, MEBL Transforming Furniture, Ennead Architects, Design for Health by MindClick, and the New York chapter of the IIDA for their support of Teaching Green. I would now like to introduce David Bergman, Director of the New York School of Interior Design Graduate Program, our Master of Professional Studies in Sustainable Interior Environments. David Bergman holds a BA from Yale and a Master of Architecture from Princeton University. He's an architect, author, and professor, creating courses in many institutions in sustainable design. He's the founder of David Bergman Eco, author of Sustainable Design, A Critical Guide, and the blog ecooptimism.com, which is dedicated to the belief that positive, often symbiotic solutions exist to our environmental and economic issues. New York School of Interior Design is fortunate to have David Bergman as our program director for the innovative Master of Sustainable Interior Environments. David, take it away.
Thank you, Ellen, and hello, everybody. So my interest in this big topic of teaching green goes back to at least 2003, when I curated an exhibit of all the eco-design courses in the colleges of New York City. While there was some really good work going on, the pickings overall were pretty slim. At the exhibit, we also had a town hall type event with the deans and heads of those schools and design programs, who all agreed that we needed to do more, that sustainable design was underrepresented and underemphasized in design education. Also in 2003, a co-instructor and I held a day-long workshop for a product design department at another school. Formally, it was called the Educators Crash Course on Eco-Design, but we dubbed it Educating the Educators. While it went a long way toward both convincing the instructors that they needed to start incorporating sustainable design into their courses and providing them with some of the resources and tools to do that, we had put together a 50-page booklet for them, it remained still a one-off event. Fast forwarding almost 20 years, here at NYSID, we have a course in sustainable interior design offered for all of the instructors. You could call it a much updated and more in-depth version of that 2003 one-day workshop in the form of a full course. It's taught by Seema Lisa Panday, who you'll hear from in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to talk about the program I'm proud to direct here, our Master of Professional Studies in Sustainable Interior Environments. We're entering our second decade of the program, and it remains, I believe, the only program dedicated specifically to sustainable interior design. It's a post-grad 1 or 2 year program offered synchronously on campus and remotely. And yes, we were Zoom experts before we were all forced to become Zoom experts. We have a remarkable faculty, all of whom are also practitioners and are dedicated to what we are here to discuss today, educating the next generation of interior designers who can help solve the problems created by the generations before them. All of the MPSS students come here already with design degrees and sometimes several years of real world experience. That means we can focus on extending their education, which too often hasn't included sustainable design, without having to teach basics such as space planning or CAD. Our courses range from the history and theory of sustainable design and sustainable interiors to specifics such as eco-materials and energy efficiency lighting, to our newest course called Frontiers of Sustainable Interior Environments, where we look at not just what sustainable interiors are about now, but where it is headed and what we need to do next. While hearing from leading experts in sustainability and sustainable interiors, the students, in a sort of capstone experience, research topics that interest them and jointly write a manifesto, which is designed to kick the rest of us in the pants. Another recent effort is to emphasize in our fall studio projects with a social conscience and that reflect the society we are now. The projects have included intergenerational housing, co-housing, and a residency retreat for a nonprofit housing a leadership training program for Native American Indigenous youths focusing on climate change and land management. All that without compromising the high level of aesthetics NYSID is known for. And our graduates have gone on to some impressive careers. Francesca Mayer Martinelli, for example, went home to Peru to become CEO of her country's Green Building Council. Michelle Jacobson stayed closer to home, forming her own successful interior design firm, while now giving back in the form of teaching sustainable design here at NYSID. Tyrone Mowbray, who also teaches here, is a senior interior designer at iCrave. With that, let me turn this over to Seema. Seema Lisa Panday is an invaluable part of NYSID's integration of sustainable design, including, among her many roles here, creating the faculty course I mentioned a minute ago. Outside of NYSID, she's a sustainability consultant and a US GBC technical lead reviewer. And rounding things out, she's also an accomplished multidisciplinary artist. So Seema, you're up next.
Great, thank you so much for that warm welcome, David. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Teaching Green Symposium. I'd like to start by acknowledging the hard work and dedicated thought that went into putting this symposium on. So thank you to especially Barbara Weinwright, Ellen Fisher, and David Berman, who have been working tirelessly to bring this amazing programming to you. I'm very excited to be a part of really what is a one-of-a-kind event, specifically to address the growing need and I'd say opportunity for designers to reshape the industry with a sustainability lens. So on to our keynote speaker. I first met our keynote, Jennifer Graham, in 2005. She was a senior associate with M. Moser at the time. And I was a sustainability consultant, and we were working on a very small LEED CI commercial interiors project. I was still green behind the ears, pun intended. And it was my first sustainability project, and turns out it was also Jennifer's first sustainability project. But the thing that struck me was Jennifer was the architect on the project. However, she was mentoring another junior architect and was really graciously showing him the path to become a better designer. And it became very clear to me then and now what she embodies in that being a leader means helping to create new leaders. And since then, her influence has continued to make an impressive mark on the industry. She was the founder and president of LMNOP, an organization designed to provide leadership, mentoring, and networking for design professionals. She's co-chair for the IIDA Sustainability Circle, champion for, and is a very prominent advocate for justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion, and especially within our industry. And now is a president of corporate interiors at Perkins Will. Also, thank you to Perkins Will for sponsoring our events and this really important discussions that we've been having. On her bio, it's written, and I wanted just to quote this. It says, her success comes from her special approach to project management, which builds mentorship into the process. And I think that's really key to what we're going to be talking about today in how to continue to move sustainability forward is through more of a group effort rather than the kind of star designer model. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Jennifer. Welcome, Jennifer.
Well, Seema, thank you very much for that introduction. I really appreciate being here today. Of course, Barbara, Ellen, David, and David for including me in this amazing forum. So talking about interior design and education around sustainability. I just want to make sure that I share my screen. That's probably the most important thing to happen. So can everyone see my screen? Okay. So today I was asked to talk about how do we teach sustainability to, or the passion for sustainability to the next generation of interior design professionals? So I think I'll first start just giving you a little bit about myself. I'm from the little island of Barbados in the Caribbean, and I come from a multi-ethnic family. My parents, of course, my father was from African descent, as many people from Barbados are, and my mother is the daughter of my wonderful grandmother, who's from Peru. So I was very lucky to have a broader outlook growing up, even though I didn't know it until I was a bit older, that I actually came from a multi-ethnic family. I don't think you realize these things probably until you're a teenager. So I was born in the 60s, and the 70s was a transformational time. When I was around 10 years old, the oil crisis occurred. And before that, I don't think I was aware of scarcity at all. And it had a significant impact on the Western world, but certainly on the small island of Barbados. So as it turns out, I visited New York City in the 70s. Actually, I arrived the day of the famous 77 blackout. And along with having an experience of working with a firm where I was able to work on a renovation, I was bitten by my love for human-centric design. And I didn't know that I had the love for human-centric design until much later. But what I did know is I wanted to design spaces for people. So I came to New York School of Interior Design. I matriculated. I went on to get my MBA at NYU, and I noticed that there was a common theme, literally that we were not being sensible and responsible stewards of our earth. And that was a theme that started accelerating as I went in toward my career. And when I went to NYSID, it wasn't in the days where there was a course that was available for interior design professionals or students. And as David Spruill awakened me to yesterday, that all MFA and BFA students now have an introduction to sustainable design. And just hearing David, and 50% of MFA and BFA students actually center their studies around sustainable design. So that is just amazing to hear and very exciting to hear. And then David talking about the Master of Sustainable Design is certainly something that is going to take and traject our entire profession into a different level. So as Seema mentioned, I started LMNOP during the downturn of 2008. It was actually founded in 2009 as a 501c6 corporation. And at that time, when the downturn occurred, I felt myself compelled to pledge to help as many design professionals that were affected by the downturn. And primarily it was in terms of keeping up accreditations. I felt that that was a very important aspect to be incorporated in any mentoring that I could share at the time. And LMNOP actually went on to be credited as a very inclusive and diverse environment for business professionals, design and architectural professionals, for networking. And I think that's something I was very proud of, especially that it actually supported my belief as an industry leader that JEDI was a very important aspect of every engagement we have, whether it's design, working within our communities, emphasizing diversity in all of our daily lives, and really supporting the interior and architectural design community around that particular area. Diversity and inclusion drives creativity. It's good business, and I am definitely there to support that approach. So how do social equity and inclusion and sustainability, how are they all intertwined? When I was growing up, reduce, reuse, recycle were the 3 R's that we grew up in grade school. You know, we were told, don't just discard things indiscriminately, reuse as much as you possibly can, recycle where possible. And then today, we are very aware that that's a limited view, and we have to also recover, think of revival, think of refusing to put things into an environment that are not degradable to begin with. And also, you know, growing up in a small country, repair was a very big part of what we did. You know, you basically reused and repaired anything you could until it literally could not be repurposed again. So for me, there's a lot to know and understand about the topic of sustainability and how it's integrated, not only into our planet, but in our communities, people, and clients. And we don't have to know everything as professionals. We have to understand, and for me, I just put them in these 4 buckets and decide, what do I need to know so that I can be relevant within not only my community, my design community, but to the projects that I lead or the peers that I am fortunate to mentor. So design matters and designers matter. And just to quote my peer keynote speaker, Ravi Rajagopal, yesterday, he said, we have to understand the concepts of reuse and disassembly, as opposed to designing things that are quote unquote to last forever, because nothing lasts forever but the earth. So we have to ensure that whatever we're doing within our planet, we're being stewards of the earth and protecting our people, our communities, and then our projects and our clients. So starting big picture, the United Nations has done a wonderful job around goals to transform our world. And these 7 sustainability development goals go beyond necessarily our area of subject matter expertise, but they all relate to us as human beings. So human-centric design, even if we focus on specific items like goal 3, good health and well-being within spaces, whether we are looking for ensuring that there are decent working conditions in the projects that we design, ensuring that sustainable approaches are integrated. We can look at every single thing on this list and find a way that it's relevant to ourselves and our lives. So sustainability really is for all. So secondly, from going a broad picture from the United Nations down to our state, going a little closer to our community, there's a lot of information just on the Department of Environmental Conservation sites for New York State, if you're in New York. And legislation was really born out of community action. So on the left of the screen, you'll see the Community Risk and Resilience Act, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and the statewide programs and plans that you can learn or you're automatically involved in, whether it's recycling within your city or in your profession, energy efficiency goals. So we want to connect our energy and efficiency and sustainability to every project we work in. So of course, if you're in Colorado, you have the Colorado Climate Action Plan. But if you're in New York City, you have OneNYC 2050. And of course, many students have been exposed to this approach already, and promising that we'll fight for environmental sustainability, economic equality, social justice that continue to be deeply intertwined. And in New York City, our local law 84 of 2013 is the sustainability legal term for our OneNYC 2050 plan that strategic plan that we're all following. And if you look again, you'll see all of those sustainability development goals that were listed on the UN site are also on the New York City site for the same reason. So a little bit closer to me. So I am pleased to be now VP of Action at IIDA New York. And I have three areas that I oversee as Vice President. One is the Equity Council, which is, of course, a very important topic that we will be diving deeply in further in the upcoming weeks. Catalyst, which is the program that I co-chair that is focused on bringing our professional expertise to communities and partnering on projects where they may not be able to afford design professionals on their projects, but we can certainly partner to improve their outcomes on projects. And then, of course, the Sustainability Circle. And I'm very pleased to be working along with my co-chairs, Corinna D'Ambrosio and Megan Hennigan. So the mission statement for IIDA approaches many of the same topics and initiatives that all sustainability industry leaders are looking to focus on, but within IIDA, we want to evolve and expand the definition of practice of sustainability and design. And of course, keep that humanity and human-centric approach forefront. Ensure that we positively impact both the built and natural environment and their inhabitants. And of course, I'm a firm believer that not only are we inhabitants and we live on this earth and are stewards of the earth, but people are inhabitants of buildings. They use and live and work within the built environment. So our built environment has to respect not only humankind, but all elements that interact. And then we want to invite and include all voices. Of course, that's the equity element. And of course, encourage this excellent design for all. So interior design touches lives. And ESG, environmental, social, and governance, is a term that has been very much focused towards business, but businesses are also within our community. And interior design has a human-centric endeavor within the business community and within this ESG framework. So for all of these, and many of these descriptors can be interchangeable, we have to be responsible for the environment. We want to be equitable in the social context. And of course, we want to be ethical and ensure that that is balancing a governance direction. And then over and above that, responsible environmental approaches are living design or sustainability. Equity, of course, brings in JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then from a governance standpoint and ensuring that there's equitable approaches, we want to ensure that social purpose is also part of that aspect. So there's definitely an intersection of climate, health, and equity in the broader lens of sustainability. So I did not term this, of course, but ESG makes business better. And it very much has been a business focus, and the governance aspect of it really drives excellence and expertise within a corporate or institutional structure. But the E and the S, which is the environmental and the social side, is the side where we can start showing as designers where there are alignments between what we can do and what businesses are looking to achieve for ESG. And we also want to ask, does this actually describe the firms that we're seeking to do business with? 94% of US companies think that there are multiple opportunities for their business to improve their environment and ethical sustainability. But the question is do they have a strategy around sustainability for their projects? And so as professionals, we want to say, how do we help them get there? And even if they do have this, we have to understand how we can work as partners and align with clients that have a strong ESG policy, or seek clients that may not have it, that you see that they have the DNA that may lead in that area. And if they are working with you, show them how we can influence from a sustainability goal. So we have a go, no go process at Perkins Will, and one of them, amongst design innovation and profitability and client relationships, we want to ensure that the mission and values of companies that we're working with align with our own sustainability goals and our own purpose-centric missions and values. And you can look at many, many articles, especially on Measurable and others, to read about these aspects, just so that you have working knowledge. And then further, there are partners that we work with. This happens to be from Code Green, and they work directly with and they're not the only company, but they work with the corporate commercial real estate company in assisting to set sustainability accounting standards board initiatives, providing guidance around determining financial materiality for companies across industries. So you do start hearing more about, being accountable and measuring and reporting back out on various initiatives in all industries. And then getting a little bit closer to your community and your projects, there are tools that Avi also told us about yesterday, the Metropolis Magazine Climate Toolkit, that we all have access to. And in emphasizing our role to play in that fight, it really gives us a very accessible and easy tool to use and learn, and it's constantly being updated, so it's never going to be dated or out of practice. But it's fantastic that we have such an amazing resource. And I know Perkins and Will also was involved in this along with many other companies, but we actually do reference and use it in our project lives. So the next area is actually going towards our industry and responsibilities as professionals in specifications. And this happens to be Mohawk's website. They are a leader, I believe, in flooring within the industry, but also sustainable flooring. They actually recycle more plastic bottles than Pepsi and Coke combined, which is a little bit ironic, but certainly a proud factor. And as far as material and product transparency, they basically have a recipe on the back of every carpet. And they have product declaration labels that show exactly what is in the product that you're specifying. And that's something that we can do as professionals. Our industry should be leaders, but we can also be responsible professionals by just knowing what is in the products that we're specifying. And then in terms of our firms, I've been lucky to work with my last 3 firms that have a very strong belief in sustainability and living design, is what we call it at Perkins and Will. And so where you work, are your firm's mission and value statement around sustainable practices in alignment with your own beliefs? Are those firms really human-centric at the forefront of their design practice, or does it take a back seat? And is there respect for the interior design professional? So if you zone in on materials alone, we know that that has the most impact on the carbon footprint on the earth from an interiors standpoint. So we have tools that we use, the life cycle assessment analysis, that we use for our architectural and interiors projects. And it's easier to apply this to a whole building. But as far as a carbon practice guide, we have to be really aware, and Avi brought this really to the forefront yesterday, how much there's an impact from interiors on a carbon footprint on this earth because of the amount of times leases turn over in our industry and the amount of times we touch interiors and literally throw everything in the trash to have a new project. So how can we be responsible and ensure that there's information for when that space is next used? So that brings us back again to design matters. We have a responsibility in our professional industry. And for me, I feel that I start with the relationship of our earth, communities, people, and then ultimately our projects and clients as how I look at professional practice. So how do we teach the passion for sustainability to the next generation of interior design professionals? I actually would like to tweak that and say, how do we share our passion for sustainability with the next generation of design professionals? I want to give input where it's important, give guidance where it's relevant, and be present and meaningful when leadership is needed. And I'll always share my passion with as many people that I am fortunate to have in my circle. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was very inspiring, and to hear your journey. So we're going to just kind of have a conversation here. And for those of you who are joining us, there is a chat function. We are going to be taking some questions near the end of our talk. So if you have any comments or pressing questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. So we know that transparency is now the new green. I guess it's not that new. It's been going on for quite a while, but trending towards, EPDs, so that we understand how, what effect does our product have, the products that we're specifying, what effect does it have on the environment? There are HPDs out there. What is the impact on human health? You as a principal at Perkins Will has been a leader in providing tools around transparency, and you mentioned a couple of them. I'm wondering if you can talk maybe a little bit more about these tools and how interior designers can use them. I know when I teach, I have one of my favorite slides is of, from Star Trek. It's Dr. McCoy saying, "Damn it, Jim, I'm an interior designer, not a chemist, not a material scientist." And, a lot of the information out there is just so daunting. So I'm wondering if you might share a little bit of about the tools that Perkins Will has. I know you've, kind of brushed on it, but if you could kind of guide us a little bit on how specifically interior designers can use this.
Certainly. So ourselves, and we're not the only firm that have these types of tools. Perkins Will has a report that we put out each year, not just for the entire firm, but it's driven at each studio level. So we have a studio report, which is follows the AIA 2030 commitment. And it's basically a sustainability performance review report for all projects. And I think if I can share my screen again, I seem to have lost, here you are. I'm just going to bring up one of the tools that we use.
Great.
So share my screen again, and let me know if you can see my screen.
Nope.
No? let's try again. So all of a sudden my screen share, here we go. Are you seeing my screen? If not, I'll just keep going.
I think, oh, there we go. Yes.
We're not showing the right screen, but I'm going to keep going. We create project storyboards for every single project. That's this icon over in the bottom left. And within each storyboard, that basically gives you all the information on the project, the status, the size, the square footage, the client, etc. There are these, there's a section that is literally a sustainability performance review, and every single project has to fill this out, regardless of whether your client is going for LEED certification or not, whether it's a large project, whether it's a small project, whether it's base building or interiors. And for interiors, it's a challenge. Some of these items are not directly applicable, but every project fills this out. And then further, then the results are reported out across each studio. So you'll see the metrics that are reported out within. And then we have a firm-wide report. And then all of those results are then reported out firm-wide. And we have benchmarks against the AIA targets. And it basically will show the progress, how well or how not well we're doing any particular year. So these are tools that we use. Evidence-based design is, of course, very important, and measuring and understanding where you are. This particular slide shows LPD reductions, lighting power density. I know that we're an industry of many, many acronyms, so everybody should never be shy in asking what they are. And then, of course, our firm-wide results and progress are shared every year. So stop sharing that screen.
That's really great. And I know that, you know, Perkins Will also has, you know, for those of you who may not be familiar, you know, that in their transparency initiative, there's also, you know, extensive research that's really open sourced and provided for anybody for free to be able to access a lot of the research that they've done, but especially regarding chemicals of concern and the precautionary principles and how the things that we specify affect our human health, like our endocrine system and things like that. So very impressive. Maybe shifting gears a little bit, your slides talk a lot about justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion. And I know especially, you know, it's something that's always been there, but for the rest of the industry, it's becoming more into the forefront in terms of, you know, the need to address it. And, you know, I know that we've been having conversations internally at NYSID and within projects that I consult on. But I'd love to hear more about how you see these JEDI principles being accessible to interior designers, and what are the focal points that interior designers can basically, what lens can they use to be able to implement, whether there's any specific examples you can think of, just to provide maybe our listeners a little bit with how they can engage in this topic within the profession.
So that was quite a complex question, but
sorry, I just kind of
think if we start just in terms of who we are as individuals and what we believe in, and everyone doesn't have to have your same belief structure, but we do have to agree that there's a common goal for all of us, you know, as humans. So, you know, Perkins and Will has not only incorporated sustainability into their practice, but we give back a percentage of our profits every year to the community. And if we're going to be endeavoring in those initiatives, one, they have to be relevant to the communities. So that brings an equity component into everything we do, and trying to look at projects through the lenses of the people who will be using spaces, not just through our lenses as designers. So being equitable in design and being equitable in leadership, I think requires a bit of humility. And Perkins Will definitely is a firm that I believe when our whole goal is to design for life. And with every endeavor, we try to ensure that we're incorporating a holistic living design approach. And our living design approaches incorporate not just sustainability, as I said, but also resilience, regeneration, inclusion, well-being. And that inclusion portion is understanding and identifying and listening to the community we're designing for.
Mm-hmm.
Does that cover?
Yeah, it's been interesting having these conversations, just even internally, like recently within the school, my faculty colleagues have been talking about just even conversations, even small things like the nuances of renaming things like the master bedroom, and master bathroom, which for all nomenclature has certain, the hierarchy of master, but also that it's coming from terms that, revolved around slavery in a sense. And so those things, even in a nomenclature sense, being renamed and acknowledged, of where those things may seep into our profession. So those being named, primary bathroom or primary, little things like that. And I know even, at least within our, we've also been trying to incorporate at NYSID, and even the students are asking a lot of, well, traditionally teaching has been around teaching for the 1%, that you're going to be only designing these luxurious, 5-story Manhattan apartments or things like that. And that, our profession is more than that, and designs for more than that. And even things like, the back of house and how we as designers think about, oh, this is the secondary thought for this area because it's used by those people, so it's not as important, so, kind of shifting that kind of thought. And do you have, just curious, your thoughts on that and any experience or examples that
Sure.
that kind of bring it a little more home for folks?
Sure. So I think that's why it's so important to understand what community we're designing for.
Mm-hmm.
So the 1% are not the only people that spaces are designed for.
Right.
And spaces are designed all around the world for people. So separating a little bit around what makes the front pages of Vogue magazine or House Beautiful is where we need to be as designers. If you start with the earth and not start with what's popular on, any social platform, I won't say that's a start, because I truly don't believe that that's where designers start when they're looking to work on a project or find a client, especially in this year, in this time. People are not being that exclusionary about what kind of work they want to do. We're seeing more and more people wanting to contribute back to their communities. And then also all of our clients are not designing for the 1%. And so if I just look at a project that happens to be a top tier project, think of a hotel. In years past, yes, it's true that it may have been very front of house, back of house, but the hospitality design sector and hospitality design industry has realized you can't have a front of house, back of house when it comes to having people committed to working within an environment where they're supposed to be providing an excellent service, and you have them working in a dirty kitchen. That aspect, I think, has come a long way. And also understanding that the people who are in that quote unquote hospitality and service environment, there's more and more voices raising to the top and saying, you must consider both ends and both spectrums. You don't design something beautiful and then pay, and I hope then pay someone nothing or have them work in a substandard environment and expect excellence. So although we have a long way to go in this area, holistically, I think more and more industries are realizing that's important. And then if you go to the opposite spectrum, just if you think of, being in an environment where you're on stage and there's a beautiful black backdrop. And if you happen to be a very, very dark skin color and you're going up there to receive your award, from some men in a black suit, all you're seeing is their teeth, their eyes, their cufflinks, and maybe their socks, and everything else gets absorbed and washed away. So we have to look from the large to the small and really be conscious about who are using spaces. That's really the bottom line. Who are using the spaces? Have respect for every individual that interacts with the space, whether they are on the receiving end or the giving end.
Yeah, and even, talking or quoting Avi Rajagopal's talk yesterday, I think he mentioned that, every building project or every building project is a global endeavor, and that, everything that we specify is also coming from somewhere else that may be affecting, the workplace conditions and things like that, and that there's a chance to intervene in the Jedi principles that you're talking about there also. So that actually, brings me to client engagement. You've talked a lot about how to, and there's also a question on the chat, and anybody else who has a question, please feel free to add it there. But about, well, the question is about community engagement, but I'd love to talk about maybe how do we engage clients more in this process so that they become, advocates. And what is your experience there?
Well, first is sharing information and showing how it can be advantageous to their firm. At the end of the day, although we are not necessarily the leaders in saying why ESG is good business, we certainly can say, we know that you are looking to attract and retain the best talent. So how do we help you do that within the built environment? We will ensure that we design thinking of equity in mind. And, ADA has been around for a long time, and that certainly has helped move things along. So there's more equity in the workplace for people with various abilities. But also, sometimes it does help to have that LEED accreditation to attract a certain type of individual. So we're not the ones who will determine what types of people companies will want to attract. But I think what we can do is show how we can support their business goals by designing space that support humans, and just keep it as simple as that. There's a lot more complexity once you go into programming and design, but if we just show how space influences productivity, influences, it's where you spend a lot of your life if you're doing an interior space, or if you're designing a space where people come and go or transient through, you really have to think, how is it going to benefit the end user? But I do want to answer the question in the chat. I'm just looking, how do we teach students to engage with the community? Again, it's not, I do not believe it's so much teaching. I think it is sharing, encouraging, and leading by example. To work in this field, you really do have to believe that sustainability is part of what we bring to the table and has to be part of our DNA. I truly believe that. And if we are if we believe that, we must share, and we must guide, and we must provide leadership, and we must be available where possible. And that way we will bring people along by just showing how design matters, and they matter in a very specific way to their communities. So leading by example is, it's not the first time we've heard that. It's been around for millennials, but we really do have to lead by example and be authentic. I mean, if you're interested in something, show you're interested, you know, don't pretend you are. And also don't pretend you don't know what you don't know. I know this much, but I have access to this much. So knowing where to go and sharing when you can is what's important.
And I know that in, a lot of cultures, the word teaching is synonymous with the word learning. And that, I mean, I'd say also as, passing or in mentoring, I feel like we're also learning a lot from people that we mentor, or even a lot from our clients about that it is an exchange and not just, oh, I have this knowledge and I'm passing it down to you for your greatness, but that we're all really learning a lot in, and this industry is changing very, very quickly, and the awareness is changing very quickly, and the focuses are changing. There's a lot of times that students will bring up things to me. I'm like, oh, I wasn't even aware of that. I'm gonna dive deeper. But that it really is also an exchange in that mentorship.
Yes, peer-to-peer mentoring. I've always believed in that, and I would bet any of the MFA or Master of Sustainability students at New York School of Design, I bet if I spent 5 minutes with any of them, I would learn something.
Yeah,
we can't possibly know everything. You just have to understand how much you need to know and what to bring to the table. And if you don't know, find out. It is a collaborative effort, and no project is built or designed by one person. There's not one thing probably on the face of this earth that's done by one. So
there's another conversation that's I've been having with folks at NYSID about professional practice, and really what designers can do to bring sustainability and equity issues more into the forefront, and beyond just what our clients are asking for. And so there've been conversations about, essentially creating personal, professional manifestos. Why am I a designer? Why am I doing design? And, things like, okay, I'm gonna, my firm or me as a practice, I'm gonna decide to use to not use any chemicals that are on ILFI's red list, whether my client asks for it or not. And there are tons of examples, but what are your thoughts on that and other examples where professionals can take a stance in like almost creating their own set of ethics before they even get approached by clients?
Well, many of us use the AIA agreements for our projects, and actually written into the AIA agreements are that we will design with sustainability in mind. So I think if we just decide that we're just going to design with sustainability in mind and have it as part of how we do our professional practice, whether you use a form of agreement or not, doesn't matter if your client is going to register for LEED or WELL or FitMet WELL or any other BREEAM or any other metric, any other certification. Incorporate into your design, specify responsibly, work within your manufacturing and sales communities to say, I want you to look at your products, and I would like you to consider PVCs, vinyl, items that we know are on the top of the material health list. and on top of reducing the amount of times those are specified, because sometimes clients will just say, I'm using LVT and that's what's in the design guideline. When you don't have a guideline, you can decide to use other products. You can decide to use rubber. You can decide to use cork. And to the point is that many times we're not designing spaces that are going to be around for 30, 40, 50 years. They're going to be gone in 3 to 5 years. Design with things in mind, knowing that they are recyclable or do not contribute to the carbon footprint. So I would say be intentional. You don't have to have a client say that they want to certify to be a sustainable designer.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a manufacturer say that they're going to give up using certain chemicals or certain processes with their products. You can start saying, I'm going to be intentional and specify wherever I can, not using products that have certain chemicals in them. And if you don't know, just ask. There are so many firms that share all this information on their websites, or just Metropolis Magazine. They've got everything there for you as well.
There's some great, we have just a couple minutes left, but there's some great questions here in the chat. This one is from Elise. Peer-to-peer mentoring is so important. Sustainability is not a new topic, but younger designers seem to have it in their DNA. How do you mentor up when it comes to sustainability and incorporating values into projects?
I think that's where the firms you work with, be intentional about the firms that you want to work with. And if your firm does not have these guidelines and goals, be part of bringing it to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm not sure there's any mentoring up per se. I think it's just being intentional and incorporating sustainability wherever you can as an individual. So mentoring up implies that only people who are in a leadership or a knowledge-based position can influence outcome. But if one truly believes in sustainability, you can have influence in many areas within your company. And sometimes it's early in your career and you don't have the benefit of working with the company you want to work with, but join an industry organization. I met a young lady yesterday, I think her name was Pravina, and she's very active, I hear, with IADA's Sustainability Circle. And I didn't know that, but now I'm going to seek her out because I'm excited when I hear that there are individuals in learning institutions who have passion and are just looking to expand their reach. So I hope that answers that question, but I don't think it's one size fits all.
So we just have a couple minutes left. Any other burning questions out there? Okay, well, I really want to thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the NYSID. Or Jennifer, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I was just also going to thank everyone for considering me for this forum. It definitely has been an enjoyable experience so far. I'm looking forward to the rest of the program. And thank you, Seema. It's great to be coming full circle with you. And
yeah, same here.
We're going to see much more of each other going forward.
Great. I look forward to it and future collaborations. Thank you everyone for joining us for this morning session, and I hope you'll join us for some really exciting speakers coming up. Check out your agenda. And again, thank you to Perkins and Will. Thank you to Jennifer and the NYSID community for helping put on this forum. Thanks, everyone.